My husband said I was just practice while kissing me. I signed him out of my life and he lost $465 million. He kissed me slow and sure, like the last scene in a movie. His hand was warm at the back of my neck. I felt safe, like the world narrowed to his mouth and my breath. Then he pulled back and laughed, the sound cold. Relax, he said, one eyebrow lifting. You're just practice. The words landed like a stone. My lips were still damp with him. My heart beat fast and then stopped. I wanted to speak, to push him, to cry. Instead I only stood there, stunned, while he smoothed his jacket and smiled like it was nothing. He turned and walked away like he had not just broken me. My hands shook. My chest felt empty. Then his phone rang. He answered with a grin and the smooth voice I'd learned to trust. I remembered every night of laughter we'd shared. He looked at me and said, "I'll see you tonight, baby." He never looked back. If you like stories of fierce payback, hit subscribe for more true revenge stories. I sank down on the cool tile of the penthouse bathroom and let the mirror blur. The marble felt cold against my legs. His words, just practice, kept moving through my head like a song I could not stop. I replayed our kisses, our plans, the nights he told me I was his best idea. It all felt suddenly staged, like a play where I had memorized lines. I pressed my palms to my eyes and tasted salt. My phone lay on the sink, his jacket thrown on the chair. I heard him in the living room, laughing on the phone, the same easy laugh that had made me trust him. Then I heard a woman's voice on speaker, soft and bright. He was listening, smiling, answering like he loved her. My name felt cheap. I wanted to run out, to grab his phone and scream. Instead I stayed on the floor, breathing small breaths. The speaker crackled, and she said something sweet and private. He did not even say goodbye. He never ended the call. I stood before the full mirror and looked at the woman in it. My makeup had run in little rivers down my cheeks. The reflection was the face I had learned to make for him. Soft, eager, proud, but it looked strange to me now, like a mask I had worn for too long. I touched my mouth where his lips had been, and I tasted whiskey and lies. On the vanity, his phone said my name in the lock screen. I picked it up because my hand moved before my mind did. The phone was warm from his touch. I flicked the gallery open with fingers that trembled. There it was, a photo that stole my breath. Him, smiling, arms around a young woman in my favorite lingerie set. The same lace, the same color I had bought for our first trip. In the picture she looked thrilled and perfect. His grin was the same as when he told me I was practice. I dropped the phone. For the first time I felt very small. I had to know why he would do this to me. He was not just a handsome liar. He was the man people whispered about at parties. Tall, smart, and rich. He owned a company that sold dreams wrapped in gold. The papers I had found once, buried in a drawer, showed the number that made my mouth dry. $465 million. I had helped build that brand. I had sat up late and sketched taglines on napkins. I had written campaigns that made his name glow. He had said my work made the company feel human. He had promised me something small then, a note that said we would be partners for real. I found that email draft months ago, saved but never sent. It sat like proof that he had lied before. I felt the weight of all the hours, the sound of my own voice giving him ideas. I had trusted him to keep his word. The draft had my name typed under his. He never filed it. I pressed my fist to my chest and thought of every unpaid hour. This was bigger than a broken heart. I remember the early days like a sweet movie, but behind the sweetness there were small traps. He called me his muse, and then measured me like a tool. He said he taught me the business, but the truth was he steered me and took credit. I learned to make his ideas brighter. He taught me to stand in front of clients and breathe, and when the cameras came, he praised me like a trophy. In private he was different. He told me I was lucky to be near his light. He asked me to sign papers, just until we get the paperwork right. I signed because my hands were shaking, and I wanted to believe him. He said it was temporary, and that I would be protected. I trusted his voice. Nights I woke thinking of clauses and small promises. Days I gave him sketches and slogans, and he turned them into money. I had signed things under his name because he told me to. Now I sat at the window and watched the city, feeling the slow weight of those signed sheets. I could feel a truth forming. I had given him too much control. The restaurant lights were soft that night, warm on the long glass table. He sat with his board members, smiling like a king. I sat by his side, quiet, trying to match his calm. When the waiter poured wine, he lifted his glass. Training her was my greatest project, he joked. The table burst into loud laughter. My cheeks burned, but I kept my smile small. My heart felt hot and cold at the same time. I kept hearing that word, project. I wanted to disappear under the table. I looked at the board chairman across from me. His eyes softened, almost sad, like he knew something I didn't. He looked down at his plate, then back at me, like he wanted to warn me but couldn't speak. I lifted the glass to my lips just to hide the shake in my hands. The men kept laughing. He kept smiling. I kept breathing slow and steady. Then the chairman leaned near and whispered something, so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. You deserve better. His voice shook. I froze. After the dinner, I walked fast through the lobby, trying to breathe. When I reached the street, I pulled out my phone and checked the company's site, then the registry pages. Something felt wrong. The numbers looked the same. His name looked the same. But my name was gone. Every credit line, every patent I had drafted, every idea I had filed with him was listed under only one person now. Him. My hands grew cold. I scrolled again and again. It made no sense. I knew I had logged in. I knew I had made the entries. I knew I had proof. So why was everything erased? I opened the digital signature log. My heart thumped loud in my ears. Every change, every removal, every deleted credit was traced back to one account, mine. My login. My password. My name. Someone had used it. Someone had taken everything I built and made it look like I did it myself. I pressed my hand to my mouth. This was not an accident. It was a plan. A deep, careful plan. He came home late that night, smelling like strong drinks and pride. He tossed his keys on the counter and laughed at nothing. You should have seen her, he said, pouring more whiskey. Young. Blonde. Perfect for the brand. He didn't look at me, just kept smiling at the bottle. You were my rehearsal, he added, as if he was talking about a test. My breath stopped, but I didn't move. I watched him walk around the kitchen like I was not even there. His words hit harder now because I knew the truth behind them. He wasn't just careless. He was planning something big, something sharp. He leaned against the counter. You were good practice, he said again. I'll give you that. I felt my voice rise in my throat, but I kept it inside. Instead I said softly, Then I guess you taught me well. He turned at that, confused. I smiled small, just enough to unsettle him, then walked past him and went upstairs. My heart was pounding. I woke early, not to cry but to work. I opened my laptop and created a new folder. I named it Project Undo. My fingers flew fast. I went through every old file, designs, campaigns, early notes he had praised but never credited. I pulled them from backups I kept hidden. He didn't know I saved everything. I started building a timeline, a clear map of every idea he took. I saw the truth form like a picture he had been stealing from me since the start. While digging through the old folders, I found something strange. A locked folder I didn't recognize. I clicked it open. Inside was a set of papers titled Confidential Acquisition. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through the files. They showed plans to sell the entire company. A list of buyers, dates, signatures needed, and there, 2 lines for founder signatures. His and mine. My hands shook, not from fear this time, but something sharper. He thought I was powerless, but he didn't know what I still controlled. I opened the documents again, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. The papers were clear. The buyer needed 2 original founders to sign. Without me, the deal was dead. I read the small lines under the signature blocks. It said, authorization required by both. I leaned back in my chair and felt a strange heat rise in my chest. He had built everything on the idea that I would never stand up to him. He thought I was weak. He thought I would break and stay broken. He thought I was still the girl he had trained to trust him. But this deal, this giant $465 million move, could not happen without me. He did not know that. Not yet. I saved the file, locked it, and backed it up twice. Then I looked out the window at the early morning sky. For the first time in days, I felt steady. My heart didn't hurt as much. I whispered to myself, he should not have taught me this game. I called one person I knew would answer with the truth. Marco, the the designer he fired last year for not fitting the brand. Marco still carried anger in his voice when he picked up. I told him everything, the photos, the missing credits, the secret deal. He let out a long breath and said, I knew it. He does this to everyone he thinks he owns. We met at a small cafe near the river. He slid into the seat across from me, eyes sharp. He's planning to cut you out completely by Friday, he said. He's been telling people you're unstable, that you're slowing him down. My stomach twisted. Friday was the same day the deal was set to move forward. He wants full control before he sells, Marco added. He's telling the buyers he's the only real founder. I felt the truth settle heavy in my chest. He wasn't just cruel. He was erasing me on purpose. Marco tapped the table. If you want to stop him, you need to move now. I nodded, feeling the spark inside me grow. That night, he leaned against the bedroom door and asked why I was quiet. His voice was soft, the same voice he used when he wanted something. I stepped closer, letting my hand trail along his chest. He smiled, thinking he had won. I missed you, he murmured. I let him kiss me, slow and warm, the way he liked to pretend we still had something sweet. I felt nothing but cold focus. When he slipped his hands to my waist, I brought my mouth to his ear and whispered the same words he once cut me with. Just practice. He froze. His breath caught. His hands went still like stone. I stepped back and smiled, small and easy, leaving him standing there confused. I walked out before he could ask what I meant. I knew he would think about it all night, turning it over in his mind, wondering if he had somehow lost control. For once, I let the silence be mine. I closed the door gently and heard him whisper my name like a question. By morning, I was ready. I opened my laptop and created encrypted copies of everything. Emails, voice clips, contracts, drafts he pretended to write, meetings he recorded without telling me. Each file went into a master folder I named Practice Makes Pain. It felt right. I saved the folder on 3 drives in a hidden cloud. Then I added notes under each file, explaining what he took, what he claimed, what he lied about. My heart beat steady, like it had finally found rhythm. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A message from Marco. He's flying to Dubai to close the deal. My fingers tightened around the phone. Dubai. That was where the buyers were. Where the contract would be signed. Where he planned to finish locking me out of the empire I helped create. I checked the time. His flight was early the next morning. He didn't know I knew his schedule. He didn't know what I had now. I whispered to the empty room. Not this time. At sunrise, I stood at the private jet terminal with a calm smile. When he arrived, he acted surprised, but pleased, like I was a gift. You're coming with me? He asked. A surprise trip? I nodded. Thought you'd like company. He kissed my cheek, already playing the mentor again. We boarded the jet. He talked about how the buyers loved him, how the deal would make us look good. I let him speak. While he bragged, I watched his phone screen reflect on the window. Once we were in the air, he made a call. He didn't see me start recording. His voice was smooth as he told the buyer that I was signing away her rights soon, that I had no idea how business works. He laughed at the end of the call, pleased with himself. I stopped recording and saved the file. My hands didn't shake. For the first time, I realized he had no idea who I was now. Dubai glowed gold at night. At the rooftop dinner, tall lights shimmered over the water. He walked in ahead of me, charming and bright, shaking hands with the buyers. And this, he said, waving to me like I was an assistant, is just my creative consultant. I felt the sting, but smiled anyway. One of the buyers, a quiet man with careful eyes, leaned toward me during the meal. You're the real genius behind the campaign, aren't you? He whispered. My breath caught. How did you know? He shrugged. Your work has a voice. His doesn't. I swallowed the warm shock of being seen. Across the table, he kept talking, unaware that someone else had noticed the truth he had buried for years. I sat straighter. The city lights flickered around us. I lifted my glass and felt something shift inside me, a new strength, a new direction. I wasn't done. Not even close. The next morning, he placed a neat stack of papers in front of me. Sign these, babe, he said, smiling like a man who had already won. Just for compliance. I held the pen the way he taught me, confident, smooth. I read each page slowly while he pretended not to watch. When I reached the transfer section, I felt my pulse slow. This clause controlled ownership, so I changed one small line, moving the rights into a holding company I had created the night before. He didn't notice. He didn't even look. He trusted my signature the way I used to trust his promises. When I finished, he kissed my hand and said, "See, you always help me shine." I smiled at him, soft and sweet, while the paper sat between us like a quiet storm waiting to open. He thought I was still his practice. Soon, he would learn I was something else entirely. The jet hummed as we flew home. He slept with his mouth slightly open, peaceful like a child after a long day. I sat beside him, staring out at the dark sky. The city lights looked like sparks floating on black water. My heart felt heavy but strangely calm. I had changed the clause. I had signed in a way he taught me. I had done everything he thought I wasn't smart enough to do. When his breathing deepened, I pulled out my laptop and scanned the documents one more time. Perfect! Then I sent them to the global legal registry. My finger hovered for a second, but not from fear. From power. When I hit send, a small chime sounded. He shifted in his seat but didn't wake. I closed the laptop gently. Outside, the world felt quiet. Inside, the world was about to change for him in a way he never imagined. Back home, he was louder than ever. He posted photos of his new official girlfriend, young blonde, smiling like she thought he loved her. He tagged her in every picture. My name didn't appear once. I watched without feeling the old pain. My phone buzzed with a message from my lawyer. The transfer went through. I opened the ownership database. There it was. My holding company's name. Clear as day. Bigger than his. Higher than his. My breath came slow, like I was afraid to break this moment. He walked past me in the living room, humming, never guessing anything was different. He thought he owned his empire forever. He didn't know he had just signed it away with his own hand. The silence tasted sweet. I whispered to myself, he has no idea. That night, Marco texted me again. He's moving the money offshore tonight. I sat up in bed, the glow of my phone shining across the sheets. Offshore. That meant he was scared. That meant he knew something was wrong. Maybe the buyer asked questions. Maybe he felt the shift. But it didn't matter. I typed back. Not if I move faster. My chest felt steady now. No panic. No shaking hands. Just purpose. I had watched him hide money before. I had sat beside him while he bragged about loopholes. I knew his passwords. I knew his tricks. I knew him better than he ever guessed. And now, for once, knowing him meant I had the upper hand. I slipped out of bed and walked to my desk. The night outside felt sharp and alive. So was I. He fell asleep fast on the couch, tired from pretending to be a king all day. I took his phone gently from his hand. Then I used a trick he had shown me months ago, his fingerprint saved on my device. I placed his thumb on my screen. It unlocked. His digital wallet blinked open. Rows of accounts. Lists of hidden funds. I scrolled until I found the offshore transfer he had planned. My heart beat once, strong. Then I moved $50 million into a frozen escrow account under both our names. He couldn't touch it. He couldn't move it. He couldn't hide it. The system pinged quietly. Done. I placed his phone back beside him, careful not to wake him. I stood there for a moment, watching him sleep. He had no idea that while he dreamed, the walls around him were already falling. He woke up angry. I heard it in the way he slammed the cabinet doors. "Why are the banks calling me?" he shouted. "Why are my accounts frozen?" I walked into the kitchen slow and calm. "Maybe you should ask yourself," I said. His eyes widened like he saw a stranger standing in front of him. "What did you do?" he yelled. I didn't flinch. "Just practicing," I said. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Then his new girlfriend called, crying loud enough for me to hear through the phone. "Reporters are at my door. They say you lied about everything." He threw the phone across the room. I watched it slide under a chair. He grabbed his hair with both hands. "This is your fault," he screamed. I leaned on the counter, steady as stone. "No," I said. "This is yours." His face turned red. For the first time, he looked small and scared. By noon, I had done something he taught me by accident, used the truth like fire. I leaked screenshots. Him mocking investors, calling employees disposable, laughing at people who trusted him. It spread fast. One post turned into 10. 10 turned into 100. His words burned across the internet until they reached every corner of the company. My phone buzzed nonstop. His PR team quit within hours. His assistant posted a message saying she refused to protect a man who hurt so many. He paced the living room like a trapped animal, cursing everyone. At one point he turned to me and said, "Fix this." I almost laughed. "Why?" I asked. "You said I was only practice." His jaw clenched so tight the muscle twitched. Outside, cameras gathered near the gate. Inside, he was falling apart piece by piece. And I wasn't finished. Not even close. He locked himself in his office, yelling into the phone at anyone who still answered. I walked past the door and heard him blame me for everything. Every loss, every failure, every risk he took. "She's nothing," he shouted. "She ruined me." I wrote his words down. Every insult, every threat, every lie he told about me. Later, I found his diary in the drawer he always kept half open. I only meant to close it, but the page caught my eye, the way my name sat on it in sharp, angry letters. I skimmed the entries, page after page of contempt. Notes about how to control me, how to shape me, how to use her until she breaks. My hands curled tight. I closed the book and placed it exactly where I found it. That was who he really was. No more questions. No more doubt. Only clarity. He staggered out of the office hours later, face red, eyes wild. "You're a gold digger," he shouted. "You overplayed your role." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered all the years he made me feel small. I stood still while he ranted. When he finally stopped to breathe, I spoke. "You made me your student," I said. "But I became your teacher." The words hit him like a slap. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His power was gone, and he could feel it. I picked up my folder from the table and headed toward the door. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To file for an executive meeting," I said. His eyes widened. "You can't." I turned back and smiled. "Watch me." I walked out as he called my name again and again, his voice shaking for the first time. Please hit subscribe for more revenge stories. The boardroom felt cold when I stepped inside the next morning. 12 members sat around the long table, their faces tight with worry. He sat at the end, sweating, trying to smile. "She's emotional," he said, waving toward me. "Not stable." I laid my file on the table and opened it with slow care. "Let's begin," I said. Then I showed everything. Emails, contracts, proof of missing funds, recordings from the jet, copies of the forged documents. The room fell silent. One member covered his mouth. Another whispered, "My God." I ended with his diary entries, his own handwriting proving intent to use me. At last, I looked straight at him. "You may remove the title, CEO," I said, "but not from me." For a moment, no one breathed. Then the chairman spoke softly. "We've heard enough." His face turned white. Revenge had finally begun. The board took only a few minutes to vote. No one spoke in his defense. Not even the members who once praised him the loudest. When the chairman raised his hand and said, "All in favor of removal," every hand lifted except his. His face went blank, as if the world had turned upside down. Then security stepped forward. He pushed his chair back fast, almost tripping. "You can't do this," he shouted. "I built this company." I stood calm and steady. "With my work," I said. The guards walked him to the door. He kept looking at me like I had betrayed him, when really, he had betrayed me first, over and over. When the doors closed behind him, the chairman looked at me and said, "We need an interim leader." The vote was quick. All hands lifted again. Mine shook for only a moment. I was the new CEO. The title fit like armor. I felt ready. Word about the halted deal spread fast. The buyers demanded a meeting. When they walked into the room, their faces were stern. He showed up too, red-faced and desperate, waving papers like he could still fix something. But I played the recordings. They listened to his voice calling me clueless, bragging about cutting me out, lying about his control. They exchanged quiet looks. When the last clip ended, one buyer turned to me. "We side with her," he said. Papers were placed before me. New partnership terms. My holding company listed as the majority owner. My hand didn't shake this time. I signed. He watched with wide, empty eyes. For the first time, he understood what he had lost. The empire he built on my heart now belonged to me instead. Later that week, the mistress posted a long video online. Her face was blotchy from crying. She told everyone he had promised to leave me for her, how he said I didn't matter, how he told her she was the real future of the company. She even showed screenshots of his messages, lines full of fake love and casual lies. I didn't know he was hurting her, she said. I didn't know he was hurting so many people. Comments flooded in. People weren't calling me weak anymore. They were calling me brave. They were calling him a liar, a user, a man who built an empire on broken trust. The public's heart shifted. Someone even wrote she deserved better from the start. I didn't answer, but I read every word. I felt something new, soft relief rising through the cracks of old pain. Paparazzi gathered outside the office gates the next morning. He tried to walk through them, screaming that I had ruined him, that everyone was lying. Cameras flashed. People filmed him trembling, yelling, losing the image he guarded so hard. The footage spread everywhere. He tried to grab a reporter's mic, but security pulled him away. Meanwhile, I sat upstairs in my new office, calm as the city buzzed with noise. My phone buzzed. A message from the buyers. Congratulations, Miss CEO. I stared at the words, letting them sink in. The company was mine. My work had finally led to something real. I stood by the window and watched the crowd below. He stood alone now, shouting into a world that no longer believed him. His fall had begun, and there was no stopping it. That night, Marco came over with 2 bottles of champagne. We sat on my couch, laughing for the first time in what felt like years. The bubbles felt light in my chest. You did it, he said. You really did it. I looked around my quiet living room and felt a strange peace. But then, 3 loud knocks shook the door. My heart paused. I opened it slowly. He stood there. His hair was messy, his eyes wet, his voice cracked. Please, he said. You can't run this without me. I need you. You're all I have left. He fell to his knees right there in the hallway. Marco stood behind me, tense. I looked down at the man who once called me just practice. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not fear. Just clarity. I didn't reach for him. I simply stepped back and let the door close. The next morning, my lawyer came early. We sat at the long dining table where I once planned campaigns for him. Now I was planning the rest of my life. He placed a stack of papers in front of me. This will finalize the ownership transfer, he said. After this, you control everything alone. I read each page slowly, tracing every line with my finger. Outside, the world felt quiet, like it was holding its breath. When I signed the last document, I felt something open inside me. A door that had been locked for years. At that same moment, my phone buzzed again. His personal accounts have been seized for investigation, my lawyer said. All linked to the embezzlement review. I leaned back in my chair. It didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like truth. Later that evening, he tried calling. I watched the screen light up again and again. I didn't answer. He had said I was just practice. Now he was the one left repeating himself to nobody. 2 days later, the board called me into a private meeting. They wanted the company to move forward without fear, without lies, without him. My lawyer handed them the final documents proving my control. They reviewed everything in silence. When the chairman looked up, he nodded once. You are now the sole legal controller of the entire empire. The sentence felt unreal, like a line from someone else's life. But it was mine. Meanwhile, reports showed his cars seized, his cards frozen, his home's under review. He blamed me in public interviews, but the world had already turned its back on him. I walked out of the meeting with steady steps. My heart felt light, almost warm. The same company he built on my silence was now stronger because I found my voice. I stood in the lobby for a moment, letting it sink in. I was not his shadow anymore. I was the one standing in the light. The day of my first press conference, the room was packed. Cameras pointed at me, lights bright on my face. I wore a simple white suit, nothing flashy, just clean and calm. When I stepped up to the microphone, the crowd went quiet. This company will now stand for respect, I said. My voice didn't shake. For honesty. For real leadership. Behind me, a screen changed to show a headline. Former CEO under investigation. Gasps moved through the room. Reporters raised hands, shouting questions. I answered each one with clear, simple truth. No drama. No blame. Just facts. When it ended, applause filled the hall. It wasn't loud or wild, just strong. Solid. Real. As I walked off the stage, someone whispered, "You're the future of this brand." I felt my chest lift. My steps were sure. For the first time, the world saw me for who I really was. That afternoon, I went back to the penthouse one last time to pack what little was truly mine. The place looked different now. Smaller, colder, like a stage set waiting to be broken down. I walked into the bedroom where he once told me I was practice. The sheets were still neat, but the air felt empty. I opened drawers, gathering my things one by one. When I found his old watch, the one he guarded like treasure, I placed it gently on the nightstand. It ticked loudly in the quiet room, almost like a reminder that time always reveals truth. I did not take anything else. As I walked out, I turned off the lights. The room fell dark behind me. It didn't hurt. Not anymore. It felt like leaving a story that was never written for me in the first place. Before leaving the penthouse forever, I stopped in front of a tall mirror. The same mirror where I once cried, asking myself who I had become. Now I stood straight. My makeup was clean. My eyes steady. I touched the glass lightly. "You were wrong," I whispered to the memory of his voice. "I wasn't your practice. You were my lesson." My phone rang. It was my lawyer. "It's official," he said. "Every share, every asset, every right is now under your name." I closed my eyes for a moment and let the words settle. Not long ago, I felt like nothing. Today, I owned everything he once used to control me. I took one last look at the woman in the mirror. Not broken, not small, ready. Then I turned and walked away, letting the past stay with its own reflection. Weeks later, I stood in a photo studio while bright lights warmed my face. The photographer told me to hold still, chin up. When the magazine cover proof came through, I almost didn't recognize myself. Forbes. My name in gold letters. The headline read, "From Muse to Mogul, the woman who took back her power." I held the page in both hands, feeling my heart swell in a slow, steady way. The team clapped behind me, proud and excited. I smiled, but inside I felt something deeper, a quiet kind of victory. Later that night, as I sat on my new office balcony overlooking the city, my phone buzzed. A message request. His name on the screen. "Please, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long moment. Not with sadness. Not with anger. Just clarity. I typed one simple word back. "Sure." Then I blocked him. The message stayed unread forever. And for the first time, I felt truly free. The next morning, sunlight filled my office. My team gathered around, excited about new projects. While we worked, I thought about all the women who had been told they were practice. Temporary. Not enough. I didn't want anyone to feel that way again. So, that afternoon, I launched a charity program using part of our profits. Scholarships for young women in business, free classes on financial skills, and support for anyone escaping toxic workplaces. Reporters called me the Silent Avenger. I didn't mind the name. At the event, I stepped up to the microphone. My voice felt calm and warm. "Never let anyone call you practice," I said. "Your value isn't a rehearsal. It's real." People clapped. Some cried. I felt strength rise inside me. Not the sharp strength of revenge, but the soft strength of rebuilding. Afterward, I walked through the crowd, shaking hands and smiling. My life felt bigger than the pain that once held me down. And it was only the beginning. A month later, I attended an investor gala wearing a simple black dress. I didn't need sparkle to be seen anymore. When I entered, people turned and whispered, not with pity but with respect. Halfway through the night, I felt a shift in the air. He was there. He stood alone near the back wall, thinner, pale, his suit badly pressed. When he saw me, he froze. For a moment, he looked like the man I met long ago, charming, confident. But now all that shine was gone. He stepped closer, voice low. "You won." I held his gaze. "No," I said softly. "I just stopped playing." His eyes filled with something I couldn't name. Regret, maybe fear, maybe both. Then someone called my name from across the room. A partner wanting my approval. A team wanting my lead. I walked away without looking back. He stayed standing there, small in a room he once tried to rule. When I left the gala, cameras flashed, but they didn't bother me anymore. They were just lights, not traps. I walked down the steps feeling tall, steady and whole. My driver opened the door, but I paused and looked at the night sky. The air smelled like something new, like closure. My phone buzzed with messages from the team, from Marco, from new partners around the world. They didn't want him. They wanted me. The empire he built on my heart, my words, my work, it was mine now. Not stolen, earned. I sat in the car and felt the weight of everything fall away, the lies that hurt, the years of being shaped into something small. He once told me I was practice, but he was wrong. I was never a warm-up. I was the whole performance. The next morning, I walked through my office with the sun filling every hallway. People smiled, waved, and nodded with respect. I felt grounded, steady in my steps. My world no longer belonged to him. It belonged to me. In my office, I placed fresh flowers on the desk, opened the windows, and let the light fall across the documents that proved everything. My company, my power, my story. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "You did it." No anger. No pain. Just peace. I grabbed my coat and headed out for a meeting that would shape the next chapter of my life. As I passed the mirror by the door, I caught my reflection. Strong, calm, whole. I smiled. He called me practice, I said. But I became the performance he'll never forget. If you love this story, make sure you hit subscribe for more true revenge stories.